Okay, so here we go. I'm going to try and scoot this closer.
Oh, that's as close as we're going to get.
That's as close as we're getting. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you really quick as I prepare to feed this. I want to show you the consistency of this starter, okay? If you mix flour and water together and stick it in the fridge, it is not going to look like this the next day, okay? I'm going to try and hold it up as high as I can, but what you see is this gelatinous gluten. Do you see how gummy it is? It's very strong, it's very supple. I mean, it's just this completely different substance than what we originally...
That's what it's supposed to look like.
This is what it looks like after it's bubbled up and the organisms have worked through it and consumed the wheat, okay? This is completely neutralized wheat. I mean, you can tell that that is a very different substance to what you get if you just mix flour and water together, okay?
So that's hungry.
This probably is not quite hungry yet. It probably would be maybe tomorrow or the next day. So we're going to feed this right now. What we're going to do is I'm going to eyeball this one because I can. We're going to put a 1/4 cup in there. And then, did we have the water? There is no difference, white or red. It's just a personal preference. I use hard white wheat to overcome my husband's psychological blockage to anything that really, really looks like whole wheat. So it was one of the little things we had to do to ease into that thing. One thing, very important, do not use soft white wheat. If you're buying grains, soft white is pastry flour. It's a low gluten flour. I did a private troubleshooting session for one of my mom's best friends last night, and I've been troubleshooting with her over the phone forever. And she said, that's it, I'm coming to your house. We're going to figure this out. And she brought her wheat with her, and she said, I just don't get it in the bread. And she brought the bread, it was all crumbly, and I just took one look at her bag, and I said, well, Laurie, you've got pastry from flour grains, you've got the soft white wheat. So please, hard white for bread, okay, or hard red, hard, either way, yes.
So if I wanted to use the soft wheat for pastries and like the crepes and stuff, use the starter on that and it would still work?
Yep.
But just don't feed it.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, technically you probably could feed your starter on soft white wheat if you needed to, but you don't want to bake bread with soft white wheat. It won't have enough gluten to bind and rise. Okay, so I've got a 1/4 cup of starter in here. How much water do I give it?
1/4 cup.
There you go. And then we are going to add... Yeah, now we're gonna do a heaping 1/4 cup of flour. Okay. So it's kind of hard to tell in this thing to tell that it's a heaping. And what I'm going to do real quick, this actually dissolves very, very easily. I actually taught a class the other day. A lady told me that she actually uses her starter to thicken soups. She just puts the starter in there instead of adding flour to thicken a soup, and she just said that it adds in really nice without even clumping, and it adds a really nice flavor to the soup. Yeah.
I want to add a tangent here. I have a son who's allergic to eggs, and we were told that we could use yeast as a replacement for eggs in some products. And so, of course, I was using rapid rise yeast, and it never worked. Now I know why.
Another thing you can use if you have people that can't have eggs, the waffles I'm going to make for you while you guys are feeding your starter will contain eggs. But if you, this morning actually, I made waffles for my kids. I was out of eggs. And what you can do is you create what's called a flax egg. It's 1 tablespoon of ground flax seed and 3 tablespoons of water. And that, if you're baking for someone who can't have eggs or for someone who's vegan, it's a great alternative. And it adds the extra nutritional benefit of the flax. Okay, so that's all dissolved. You can see that that's just a murky substance there. We're going to add in our flour.
Does your flour have to be freshly ground, or can you grind it from the wheat?
You know, I usually, every time I make bread, when I make bread, I grind the flour, but I always make enough, I always grind enough that I have some to keep in my pantry for feeding my starter. You always want to have some flour on hand, because if you don't, you're not going to want to go grind flour just to feed your starter. It's
You
just,
don't have to store your flour in the fridge.
you know, it's probably better. And I have read some studies, one actually that was done at BYU, that show that it is one of the best ways is by freezing it. But I have a very small freezer, so it just won't fit in there. Okay, so I am going to stir this up. This is getting to be just about the right consistency.
Okay, so I've heard that wheat flour goes bad after so long.
It begins to oxidize.
How long is that? How long?
You know, I do have some of that information. In my book, I don't have it just on hand and off memory. But yeah, it's not very long, but I do just say, again, you know, do what you can. Do what will help you to do the most good, which is starter baking, baking your own bread. Do what gives you the most good, and then as you work from there, you know, go from there. Yes?
For the sake of convenience, not having to worry about your flour, how about doing the starter with white flour and then actually baking your bread with whole wheat or a mixture of grains? Would that work? No?
I've never done that. I usually just say, just stick with the same, you know, whatever you're going to be baking with, just have some of that on hand and continue that way. Again, it's hard for me to say because I'm not a big fan of white flour, so.
I'm not either. That's why we're going to the starter.
Yeah, but even in the starter, it's going to end up in your bread. You know, I mean, I do have recipes. I do bake with white flour. Okay, when I have guests over to my home, I am not going to inflict my healthy bread on people who are not interested in eating it. I will bake white bread for my family, for my friends. You know, it's not so taboo that I won't do it for other people. I just try not to have us eating that as much as possible. So I'm going to show you if I can, and I'll pass this around so that you can do this on your own. But if you can see, I'm just going to smear this up the side of the container, and you can see how it's very slowly slipping down the side. Okay? And as you do this on your own, as I pass this around, I just want you to see the consistency of it. It's thick enough to be smearable. If it's too runny to do this, it's too runny. If it's too thick to do this, it's too thick. But here is the, well, with this consistency, that the number 2 key to success is thicker is better than thinner. If you're going to err on any side, err on the side of too thick. Because if it's too thin, then there's not enough food in there. Okay? And also, if it's too thin, you won't be able to see the bubbles because there will be no cohesion going on. It'll be too runny. The bubbles will just dissipate out right off the top. You won't ever even know that your starter's bubbling up. Okay?
We're going to pass this.
What was the substitute for again?
It's ground flaxseed, 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed to 3 tablespoons of water.
Oh my gosh.
So, okay, so that's what we do for the first one. Now we're going to go through that sequentially. We're going to build our starter slowly. If you look at your table, step 2. Okay, so right now, I've just doubled its volume. How much starter do I have? I have a half a cup of starter, a little more than a half a cup. But so your step 2, so what you're going to do is you're going to go home, put that in the fridge. It's going to bubble up, it's going to fall, and you're going to wait for a liquid to develop on top. Okay, that's that byproduct, right? That is your key, and here is the number 3 key to success.
How much liquid? Just wet or?
Once it covers the top, very lightly covers the top. And this is a really, really, really big key to success. I'd say the 2 most important are the consistency, thicker consistency, and this is the next one. Feed your starter every time there is liquid on the top. Okay? That is critical. Because once the liquid's on the top, your starter is telling you it has used up its ready food source and it needs to be fed. Okay? Every time you see the liquid across the top, needs to be fed. If you have time, do it now. Don't think, well, I'll do something with it tonight. I'll do something with it later. I'll feed it in a couple of hours. No. Because then, you'll have the day that I had today where the baby has the blowout and, all these things, and you fall exhausted into bed and you totally forget about your starter. Here's another thing is, let's finish up this cycle. So you're going to go, you now have a half a cup. It's going to bubble up. It's going to fall. It's going to get a little bit of liquid on top. Then you're going to feed it. You're going to pull it out. It's in your chart. It says wait for liquid, and then it says to pour off the liquid as much as you can. It's not harmful to you. It won't hurt your starter. We just want to get as much of it out as we can so it doesn't create extra